Japanese joke about it. It's a farce. And they're going to give you a certificate. They don't meet the qualifications. These teachers in the National Education Association are evolutionists, and women lib and gay lib, they're not qualified to teach a child anything, let alone homeschooling. Why, we ought to require they get a certificate from us before we send our kids to school. It started out of nothing and took place accidentally. Oh, it seems to me I've heard that song before. It's from an old familiar score. I know it well, that melody. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. See, I'm not just talking. That's what they said it was. If you don't look it up, don't believe it, look them up and read them. I had to look them up and I had to read them. How come you get out of it? It started out of nothing and took place accidentally from something the size of a baseball. Jury? Guilty. Guilty as hell. This baseball went boom, and 10 million years later, a couple 100 million years don't make much difference if you're so exact. 10 billion years later, you pick up this baseball going off. Don't you know, baby? You know what these fellows are doing. Since the atom bomb went off, their whole lives are dedicated to atomic fission. And all they can think of is energy exploding. They're stuck back in 1945. Goose said it began from something smaller than an atom. Huh? A space bubble. How about a blibbity block? Wouldn't that be just good? I got a good idea. A spooky fluke. It came from a spooky fluke. Anybody knows that? You know what spooky fluke is, don't you? It's a word I just made up. You say, what? Like space bubble. Smaller than an atom? Well, let's see. That'd have to be smaller than a pinhead. That'd be smaller than a pinpoint. That'd have to be smaller than the molecules on a pinpoint. And it went boom. 10 billion years later, Bell telephone picked it up. Hey, man, enough for one day, okay? Let's go home. That's enough. Really, I can only take so much, you know. Just too much, man. I mean, let's go back to something serious, you know, like Laurel and Hardy or the Three Stooges, you know. Let's get some scholarship in here, okay? Instead of this space bubble that you can hear 10 billion years after it blows up and it's not as big as a pinhead. Don't you know, boy? You see, these fellows think I'm to believe this because this is the evidence. I'm looking at the evidence. And I said, this fella ought to be locked up in a rubber room on a funny farm and stay there till he gets his pilot light turned back on again. The bubble got hot. What made it get hot? I'm sorry, we're out of today. The bubble got hot for no reason and expanded. Why did it expand? Till it got hot? Cooling as it went. Why did it cool as it went? Then the rate increased. What made it increase? Sorry. All matter in the universe came from energy turning into subatomic particles for this thing blowing up. For what reason? Sorry, no reason. What's the trouble? The trouble is a genuine evolutionist is sick in the head. He is mentally incapacitated, and he can't think clearly, and he can't talk clearly, and he can't reason. Hence, no reason. No reason. No reason. No cause. No reason. They lost the reason. Professing themselves wise, they became fools. Romans chapter 1. Then this egg blew into 20 billion light years in size from something smaller than a pinhead. They've got here something like the universe 10 or 5 or 20 billion light years in all directions, give or take a few 100 million, depending upon who's trying to prove what. And it got that idea from a pinhead with everything going in such perfect uniform motion you can set your clock by it. That's evidence. How can you be a creationist and reject this wonderful evidence? Cockeyed, non-scientific baloney, just as much baloney as you ever got a delicatessen store in your life, boy. Just pure, raw baloney from start to finish. Conclusion. Some pinhead lost his reason. That's pure scientific fiction. It is blind, irrational faith. The material here is gathered from the Philadelphia Inquirer, November 7th, 1982. Observe. All religious fanatics follow the same procedure. Having rejected the Bible as the final authority, they give you their opinions as authoritative, and then alter the opinions every time they try to be nonsense. This calls for infinite alteration and eternal guesswork, everlasting error, and total agnosticism, or in plain English, total, unmitigated, endless ignorance. Ever learning, yet never able to come to a knowledge of the truth.